Hi, my name is Tom. I'm an Ableton certified trainer, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at ways that you can generate interesting bass lines and melodies if you are kind of stuck for ideas. And we're going to use some of the built-in tools in Ableton Live to help us come up with those. So to start us off, I've just got a basic kind of loop here that we're going to program things against. It sounds like this. Some chords and a basic beat. And I have a bass track loaded up here with a bass sound on it. So the first thing we'll use is the built-in MIDI tools in Ableton Live. So I'm going to double click to create a new clip. It's going to open up the clip here. And over on the left, down at the bottom, we have these two tabs, Transform and Generate. We're going to open up the Generate tab. So MIDI tools were a new thing added in Live 12. And they let you generate MIDI directly in the MIDI editor based on various different kind of settings that you set. And there's a number of these MIDI generators. There's a couple that come built in with Live, and there are a few Max for Live devices that you can get that add additional functionality as well. But we're going to use the Seed MIDI device, which is a built-in one, or Seed MIDI tool rather, to help us generate a bass line. So Seed can generate chords, melodies, any kind of MIDI information, but I find it's particularly good at generating single note melodic lines like bass lines and melodies. So the way it works is we've got these kind of three settings here. The pitch setting is going to give us the range of notes we can generate within. The duration setting is going to give us the range of kind of timings we can generate within. Velocity, the range of velocity. Then at the bottom here, we have voices. Voices is how many simultaneous notes can be generated. One is obviously going to be useful for things like melodies, but we can generate more simultaneous notes, so notes that might play at the same time. And then the density is going to control how dense the notes that are being created are. An important thing to know, though, about these MIDI generators is there's sort of two ways that they can work, controlled by this control in the bottom left here, that is currently in auto mode. When we're in auto mode, as soon as I adjust any of these controls, so let me change this density control, you'll immediately see that notes are generated. So this is a really handy way to work because you can make changes here and in real time, the MIDI notes will be regenerated. And you can even do this, of course, while the clip is playing. Change my pitch. Change the number of voices. Now, what you'll notice in this case is you can see that there are multiple simultaneous voices being generated, but the particular sound I'm using is actually monophonic, so it's not actually going to play all of those notes simultaneously. But if you were generating chord progressions or some kind of polyphonic sound, you could use multiple voices. So I'll set that back to 1. The other way of operating with these is if we disable auto mode, we can adjust the settings that we want and then hit generate, and it's then going to generate our notes. If we want to try a different pattern, we hit generate again, and it regenerates those notes. I quite like working in auto mode because you can just do things in real time as you're working. So you can immediately start to see how quick and easy it is to generate patterns. And one important thing to sort of point out here is that these patterns are generated based on the key and scale that you've set for this particular clip. So usually that's going to be the same key and scale for your whole song. In this case, we're in E minor. So it's only going to generate notes within the key of E minor. So let's just play around with this a little bit, just experiment, try some different settings, and see what we can come up with. So here's what we already had. I'll hit generate again. Gives me a variation. Make it sort of slightly less dense. Let's try another one. So there's not a half bad pattern. And of course, these are all just MIDI notes. So if it's sort of close to something you like, but not quite there, you can go in and edit these MIDI notes. Now, we've just got a 1-bar pattern here. It's a bit kind of boring and short. So we'll go over to the loop length up at the top here, and let's set this to 2 bars. Now, we've got a blank second half of the bar here. The way that these MIDI tools work is they generate based on your current selection. So if I select, just click and drag to select only the second half of the bar here, I can leave this first bar untouched and hit generate, and generate some new notes in the second half of my loop. And apply the same processes here, where I can change these controls in real time, try some variations. So there's a pattern. Let's try a different MIDI tool here. I'm going to create a new clip, and I'll immediately just play this clip, so we've got that triggered, and switch over to the shape MIDI tool. Now, the way that this works, it's similar to the seed MIDI tool, in that any changes that you make are going to be generated in real time. But in this particular tool, we can draw in a custom shape using the pencil tool here, or I can select from one of the built-in shapes, for example, arc up, etc. And you can see that the MIDI notes are being generated to follow along roughly that pattern that I've drawn. I have similar things to what I had in seed, where I've got my sort of minimum and maximum notes. I have the rate of generation here. So let's set this to the up preset. And what you'll hear is that this is just going to kind of generate ascending notes, starting at the lowest note I've got, moving up to the highest notes. We can control the density. Jitter adds a bit of a random offset to these. So if I increase this. Tie is going to set whether certain notes will be tied together. See, I've got these kind of longer notes. Maybe let's turn the density down a bit. But this shape MIDI tool is really handy if you sort of have a particular melodic contour in mind that you're wanting to create. Like, let's maybe say that I want the first half of my loop to be kind of higher, and then it dips down here, and then gets higher at the end. I can just draw that into this shape. And you can see how that has created notes along with that shape. Again, I can just hit generate over here to try some sort of variations. Cool, now let's look at another technique that we can use to extend this sort of one bar loop to something slightly more interesting. So we've created this melodic pattern over here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit the duplicate button, and that's going to create a copy of the loop. So I've just got 2 bars of exactly the same loop, and it's got this second half selected here. I'll close the generate tab and instead open up this transform tab and go over to a MIDI tool called Recombine. And what Recombine does is it takes the notes that I've already got and shuffles them around. So I can just move this control here, and what you'll sort of see is at the moment I'm in this shuffle pitch mode. It's sort of shuffling, it's using those exact same pitches that I've got there, but shuffling their order. And what's really interesting about that is you can take a sort of melodic phrase and keep sort of roughly the same shape of it, but maybe just shift the placement of some of the notes. I could change to position here, and what that's going to do is you'll see it's kind of moving all those notes left and right as I use this rotate control. And so there's sort of infinite possibilities that you can explore here with those generators and simple transform tools to create 1 bar, 2 bar, 4 bar, however long you want, patterns really simply. So let's take a look at kind of one other interesting way that we can generate melodic lines. Of course, just to mention that at the moment we're generating a bass line, but if I just took this up a couple octaves, then I would have a melody or lead line. So it's exactly the same process whether you're doing sort of a bass or a lead, just in different pitches. Another technique we can use here is to use MIDI sequences to generate patterns. And there's kind of 2 MIDI sequences that we can use. The first one is in the pack section in Live. This is a free pack, but you have to install it. It is called Sequences. So you'll find this in the available packs section in Live. And once that's installed, we have the Sequences pack. There's a number of different sequences that we can work with here, but the one we're going to use today is called SQ Sequencer. And I load that onto this bass track. Now, this generates notes in real time. So as soon as I hit play, You can hear it's just generating those notes in this sequence. But what's really fun about this is we can program things in manually if we want. I can go in here and draw in a sort of pitch pattern. Now, the first thing I probably want to do is enable scale mode for this so that it follows along with the key of my song. This is a bass line, so I can drop this octave control down maybe 1 or 2 octaves. And so I can create this sort of more kind of hardware style sequencer pattern, which can be pretty fun. But you'll notice that there's also a lot of these dice controls for all the various parameters that we have here. So for example, this top dice control sets the step activator. So if I hit that, it randomizes which steps are on or off. Maybe I'll hit this random pitch dice. And I can also make this a 16-step sequence if I want to create something a bit longer. So this can be a really fun way to just kind of discover new patterns and progressions, bass lines and melodies just by randomizing, but you still have this control to be able to go in and adjust them after the fact if you want to. One other fun device that we'll look at is a custom device. So there'll be a link to download this device in the description, but it is a free device. This is one of my favorite Max for Live devices. It's called Sting. If you're into any kind of acid genres, acid house, acid techno, this is an acid line generator. You can see you've got your classic kind of acid smiley face over here. And this is a really simple one to use because all we need to do is set the root key. We can actually set it to be in key mode using this button here as well. And then we just click our friendly little smiley face and it's going to generate a new pattern for us. So there's a pattern. There's a new pattern. Control the density of the pattern over here. If I want to make it slightly longer, I can change this direction so that it goes back and forwards. Generate a new pattern. And if I like what it's being generated, I can click this clip button and the device actually creates a MIDI clip for me with those notes in it. So it's a relatively simple and straightforward device to use, but it's just infinitely fun to play around with and generate these patterns really quickly. Of course, there are tons of other really interesting kind of Max for Live devices that you can find to generate and sequence patterns. There's some that come with free packs that you can get with Live. There's tons of others that you can find by third-party creators online as well. And just again, there'll be a link to Sting in the description. So hopefully that's given you a couple ideas for ways that you can generate bass lines and melodies, either using the built-in MIDI tools in Live or by using Max for Live sequences.